Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're diving into the fascinating world of Peacekeepers, exploring the powerful osteo striga, and uncovering the ultimate Stormkeepers build that many of you may not have thought about until now. While dual SMGs aren't the greatest for endgame champions, this build right here should be strong enough to outright nuke them with the poison, bolt charge, blind, and increased damage. So, what are you waiting for? Grab your Peacekeepers and let's dive in. Aside with exotic armor, Peacekeepers, with his exotic effect, Mega Holster, which states, while wielding a submachine gun, handling, airborne effectiveness, and movement are all improved, and damage against combatants will increase the longer you remain on target. Submachine guns are reloaded when stowed. Peacekeepers feel like they were designed for PvP, but truthfully, they're more PvE than PvP, but can be used in both. The best way to maximize Peacekeepers' damage increase is to actually use a weapon that can either auto-reload per kill made, or has a very large magazine that can also get bigger if you wish. This is where osteo striga comes in, as the following weapon not only increases magazine size per kill made via poison, but this also stacks on top of the other additional buffs we are going for, aka bolt charges. However, you're never limited to just one weapon though, as Peacekeepers can work with any SMG of your choosing. Our second exotic is osteo striga, with its exotic effect, Screaming Swarm and Toxic Overload, which states, fires a stream of sentient, toxic projectiles that trap the targeted enemy. Landing a final blow or multiple precision hits triggers a burst that poisons nearby targets. Striga has gone through some rough patches within the game, especially at one point where its ammo was reduced, thus making it harder to trigger its effects on most enemies. Now that has been fixed, it's quite an amazing weapon to pair with Peacekeepers overall. The fact that you can get overflow with this weapon easily, and then combine that with Peacekeeper's damage buff, allows the weapon to be a solid kinetic primary weapon against 99% of the things you face. Now, we will use this with Storm Keys for even more chaos, but I found that this was the right weapon to pick, just because of how powerful it can get when applied multiple times over. For the aspects and fragments, we have the following. Storm Keys, where casting your class ability will grant you and allies a moderate amount of bolt charges over time. At max stacks, you can use your weapons to activate them. Knockout, where critically wounding a target will increase your melee damage and start regaining your health. A Spark of Ions, where defeating jolted targets creates ion traces. Spark of Resistance, where while being surrounded, you gain reduced damage. Spark of Recharge, where while critically wounded, your grenades and melee slowly get recharged. And Spark of Frequency, where melee hits increase your weapon stability and reload speed for a few seconds. While amplified, the effects are increased and you gain increased bolt charges from all sources. As this setup will be incorporating both stationary and on-the-go movement, it is highly recommended you add in fragments that will help you greatly when taking in incoming damage. Having resistance and recharge are both very handy fragments, as they will not only increase your damage resistance by X amount, but also give you increased ability energy from reaching critical health. This can be handy in many ways, with one of them allowing you to stay on the go when facing multiple enemies at once. In fact, since our build requires us to switch in between our weapons because of Peacekeeper's effect, this alone is going to allow us to play more aggressive instead of us using Stormkeeps. But what about Stormkeeps usage, you may say? Well, the build will be using it via our primary weapon, Osteo, but it will also be using it through our other weapons as well. Ions and Frequency are both going to help with getting our bolt charges back fairly fast when using the aspect, and although having Spark of Discharge can help us out through other means, I just don't see the point of it because of how often we will be using our primary more than our secondary primary. But the build is accessible for users to switch and adapt to how they please, so please don't take just my word on it. Also, do remember to add on the Dielectric, Flashover, and Defibrillating Blast to the build, as they are easy to activate and pair well with the build overall. For the mods and stats, both Resilience and Discipline will be the two stats to invest in the most. Resilience at tier 10 will be giving us a 30% damage reduction and a 22-second cooldown when using Valley Barricades. A current cooldown is what you want to aim for, but if you can't achieve that, then having a tier 7 and above is also fine. Like always, having their Arc or Void Resistance mod will help out massively with incoming damage, especially since the build will be on the move more. Our Discipline is at tier 10 for a 46-second cooldown using our flashbang grenades. Considering the build will be on the move and staying in one place, having something like the flashbang grenades on hand will greatly help with dealing with crowded areas, while also applying an additional debuff in the process. Now, you do need to be careful with the grenades, as you can mess up on your throws at times. But outside of that, flashbangs do pair up nicely with SMG builds, if you know how to use them. So to expand on the abilities being used, we have the following. Impact Induction times 2 for a 17% grenade ability regen, momentum transfer times 1 for a 12% melee ability regen, and bomber for a 12% grenade ability regen. For the additional extra mods, we have the following: kinetic or harmonic siphon for creating auto power via matching weapon type, Ashes assets where getting a grenade kill grants super energy, heavy ammo finder, reserves and scavenger mods for a heavy weapon, charged up for a +1 on armor charge, kinetic weapon surge times 1 for a 10% weapon buff, powerful attraction for automatically collecting auto power when using class ability, and time dilation, which will prolong the decay rate of charged by light gear. Now, as we have covered our Zodiac primary weapon, I will then advise you to pick some super weapons for the build. What I recommend are all optional, so please keep this in mind. Our secondary primary is the Noxious Vetiver, with attrition orbs and jolt feedback. Since our main primary will apply poison build up over time, and gradually get stronger the longer it's being used, I thought having a secondary weapon like this would be more beneficial when wanting to apply additional debuffs to the mix. Although it lacks the reload speed to stay competitive, having attrition orbs for extra orbs of power enhancement and jolt feedback for easily applying jolt onto targets does wonders when you switch in between them in the heat of the moment. A debuff gets added on both from our two weapons, while also getting a damage increase via our Peacekeepers. This will also interact with our Fragments, so in many ways, this weapon has nestled in quite well for the build. For heavy, we have Storm Chaser with well-rounded and firing line. This is being used for taking down mini bosses to bosses alike at long ranges, while also applying particle deconstruction to the mix. While the roll is okay, having firing line and the weapon being an adaptive burst does help with applying damage quickly and efficiently. As mentioned before, the Scintillation linear fusion is also a good replacement if you can't get this weapon with a good roll on it. As to be honest, you don't need to be too specific with which heavy you use here. A good build in mind that can work in any and all environments, but does require a bit of focus when it comes down to keeping and maintaining the current rhythm. Ideally, Peacekeepers, osteo striga with Stormkeeps, is the main play here, as it will cover the necessary range for us to take on most enemies at long distances. At the same time, the added on poison effect, bolt charges, and ever expanding ammo allows the weapon to build and to easily build up a stock load of ammo over time, while also clearly increasing our damage through one of two ways. And this does work out perfectly when you match your primary weapon with another weapon that can not only greatly benefit from Peacekeepers overall, but also apply an elemental debuff that can enhance the build further, aka jolted feedback. And this is a crazy role that I really do enjoy and love when it comes down to staying on my toes and reacting after the situation change. While yes, Stormkeeps will be playing a prominent role in the build, you don't actually need to use it constantly, as Peacekeepers and your chosen weapon alone can pull off some hefty damages one after another. In fact, as Peacekeepers encourages players to use SMGs more, it is highly recommended you explore some more of the unique combos that the game provides, as for example, instead of me having the SMG that applies Volt Shot onto enemies, it can instead apply overshields and volatile rounds instead if I go for a void weapon. Or better off, you can get a setup that provides a constant scorching healing, or even have one that increases your weapon's damage even more on top of Peacekeepers applied. Overall, the build can just work in any area you wish for as long as you adapt to your switching in and out of your weapons. At the same time, you'll need just one weapon that has a bit of range to it, just so you can back off at times if the situation does get bad. But outside of that, you should give this wonderful build a try. So there we have it. I hope you all enjoyed the build breakdown. If you have any thoughts on the content shared, then please leave a comment, a like and a sub while you're here. I will leave a dim link for the build below, and if you want more stuff like this, then I have a playlist available covering all types of builds you desire. It was great sharing today's video with you all, and I hope to see you again soon.